Welcome everybody to Brand You. If this is your first session of the day, welcome. If this happens to be a second, third, maybe even fourth session of the day, I welcome you back. I am Dr. Craig Ingstrom. I am the Director of Undergraduate Studies in the program of Communication Studies here at Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. This event is being hosted by my department, and we also are doing this with the generous donations from our alumni, friends, and sponsors. Sponsors of this event include Communication at Work LLC and SIU Liberal Arts. So we're very grateful for them providing us with the funding to pull this off. For those of you attending for class credit, please note I will provide a link in the description or the chat if I remember to hit enter. So if you're coming back, I've made this error a couple times, just tell me right away. On behalf of the faculty, staff, students, alumni, and friends, and today's speaker, I would like to welcome you to the session, Strengthening Your Resiliency Muscle Within Organizations with Farooq Shah. Saluki Maribel Phelps will introduce today's speaker.
Hello, I am Maribel Phelps. I am a junior in the Communication Studies Department here at Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. Farooq Shah is a spiritual teacher and author who has spent a lifetime overcoming adversity. At the age of 2, he was diagnosed with systemic juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. He spent his childhood in and out of the hospital as he grappled torment from his abusive father, as well as the physical and emotional setbacks of his chronic illness. Struggling to fit into a world that did not feel his own, Farooq turned to books. Farooq is quoted with saying, "Brokenness is my blessing." Today, he has reclaimed his place in the world and encourages us to do the same. Resiliency, he says, is a muscle that we can all choose to strengthen. Welcome, Farooq Shah, to SIUC.
Thank you so much for the opportunity and for having me. What I'd like to do is share a brief presentation, and then we can move from there. So.
While you're getting that set up, Farooq, just for those who are here, what we've been doing is, as he's speaking, go ahead and put your comments or thoughts in the chat, your questions. We'll go through those as we go on. So, it's better to write it down right when you're thinking about it. You can also use the Q&A function. We will be attending to all your questions. If you would like to ask your question, in person, you just raise your hand and then I'll call on you and unmute your mic so you can do that. So there's a lot of ways that we can get some interaction here. Do you have everything, Farooq? Just want to double check here.
I believe so. I just go to the
share on the share screen button. Might give you like some kind of warning that I'm also sharing, but that's okay. There you go. So, all right, great. Looks like we have that going. Again, please put your comments in the chat if you have questions for Farooq, which we'll attend to after his brief presentation.
Great. How do I, do you know how I make it a full screen from beginning?
Just like you would in regular PowerPoint.
Oh, great. Yeah, good. All right, great. Thank you guys so much again for the opportunity. It's an honor and a pleasure to talk about one of my passions, which is resiliency. As Maribel did mention, I've dealt with the concept of resiliency and incorporating it into my daily life since my childhood. I was diagnosed at a very young age, at the age of 2, with systemic juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And then I grappled with that. And then in 2011, I broke my neck from C2 to C7 and became a quadriplegic medically. And I came back from that to walk again. And so from a personal standpoint, there's been a lot that I've learned about resiliency and a lot that I've been able to incorporate into my life and really strengthen my resiliency muscle and use it not only in a professional setting or not in a personal setting, not only in a personal setting, but also in a professional one. And so it's with my pleasure to be able to kind of talk about those some of the lessons that I've learned along the way. So without further ado, so resilience is the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, or sources of stress. It means bouncing back from difficult experiences. Resilience is not a characteristic gifted to some individuals and not others. The key here is that resilience is not a passive quality, but rather an active one. And how we approach life, what life throws at us, has a massive impact on our experience. Just to briefly touch on this, resiliency, I think sometimes people think is something that happens like in moments of despair. Or moments when we need to dust it off. But your resiliency muscle is something that you can practice on working on every day through incorporating a different techniques such as reframing your experience to a positive one, the way that you interpret your thoughts and your feelings. Resiliency for me, in essence, is not so much something that I take out of the closet and dust off when I need it, but more so a mindset of moving through an experience, uh, knowing that it will strengthen me. And a resilient person is likely to recognize and manage their own feelings, understand their feelings of others. They have a sense of independence and self-worth. They form and maintain positive, mutually respectful relationships with others. And they're able to solve problems and make informed decisions. And they have a sense of purpose and goals for their future. So this is kind of the basic resiliency formula. It's coping, grit, emotional intelligence, and sense making. And uh, this formula I'll break down. The International Institute of Resiliency in the Netherlands actually broke this formula down even further than I have. They qualify it as I am, I have, and I can. And I'll share some of those examples of how that incorporates into what I have as well. So coping, C, is being able to tap into your inner resources, skills, and strengths to be able to cope and recover from problems, setbacks, and challenges, and to bounce back. So that's the I have portion. I have the strength to be able to conquer the challenge. I have the knowingness and the ability to be able to conquer whatever challenge. And I have the problem solving mindset to know that I can come up with a solution. Sense making, being able to make sense of a past experience and learn from them, being able to make life meaningful by having a sense of purpose and goals for the future. And so this is the I have portion. It basically reflects the idea that I have people that support me and love me, and I know that I have experiences that I can use to strengthen my resolve. And then grit is that a resilient person. Uh, a resilient person, people never give up. They find in themselves the strength to tackle problems head on, overcome adversity, and move on through their lives. Emotional intelligence, being able to analyze and manage feelings and emotions, is the key success factor to deal with difficult situations more positively. So, ways to build resilience within the workplace. I've been part of corporate corporate America for a great deal of time now, 20 plus years. And some of these strategies have helped me build resilience in the workplace. Cherish social support and interactions, build good relationships, people that are empathetic and positive to your cause. Good relationships with friends and family and others are vital. being active in the wider community also helps. I know oftentimes organizations have outreach programs that they're involved in, or events that they hold, such as like social events. Those are good things to just be involved with, so that you can always strengthen your inner circle. Treat problems as a learning process. Develop the habit of using challenges as opportunities to acquire or master skills that build achievement. The idea is not to be afraid of failure, and to accept failure as it comes. We all will fail at one point in our life at everything that we do, or for the first time. But the idea is to treat it as a learning experience. You do get better, and the process gets easier. You celebrate your successes. You take time at the end of each day to review what went well and congratulate yourself. This trains the mind to look for success rather than dwelling on the negativity and failure. And you practice gratitude on a daily basis as well. Uh, so you understand that even though the experience that you might be going through is difficult, you're able to reframe it with gratitude and say, that you're thankful that you're able to get through it. Take positive action. Doing something in the face of adversity brings a sense of control, even if it doesn't remove the difficulty. Keep a realistic perspective. Place challenging or painful events in a broader context of a lifelong personal development. And practice optimism. Nothing is either wholly good or bad. If we allow our thinking to dictate how we view something, it will take over. Make your thinking work for your benefit rather than letting it stifle how you doubt, or by seeing only the bad side. And this goes to my idea of mindset. We really have to practice reframing how we interpret our thoughts throughout a daily basis. Those negative thoughts, they can be negative, but there's often positives to them. We just have to see that. And creating a resilient, friendly work environment with management, healthy workspace practices, recognition management, sense making, failure management, training and development, change management, conflict management, and situational management. So these are basically ideas of how as managers or as leaders, we can go about causing change to flow, and for resiliency to be within the environment. Oftentimes in corporate environments, stress can happen, and so the idea is not to avoid stress, but how do I use stress or to propel me? What do I do or to make it less stressful? And how can I use resiliency to reframe my experience? Ultimately, it's about your potential and getting better and creating a more positive mindset. Some helpful tools are empathy, smart goal setting, and problem resolution tools, and also looking for coaches and mentors. Oftentimes some of my best advisors have come from the academic environment. They've come from uh, senior managers that I work with, even people that I don't know, that I've befriended, and I've asked, would you mind being my mentor? Man never made any material as resilient as the human spirit. Bernard Williams, I really like that quote, because I sincerely believe that each of us has an innate resiliency muscle within us, and that if we focus on strengthening every day by practicing how we interpret our thoughts, feelings, and emotions, by practicing resiliency, that we can strengthen. So that is my presentation on resiliency. I am open to uh, accepting questions, whether it be about my personal life or about my professional life, it would be my pleasure to answer whatever is available.
Great, thank you, Farooq. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing the presentation just so we can prioritize our cameras here. And again, go ahead and write your questions, throw them in the chat, raise your hand, ask Farooq in person. We do have a first question already from Will Mesh. Yes, Will, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you. And a great presentation, by the way. I know resilience can be kind of tough nowadays with everything going on with the COVID-19 virus, but is there you said it's kind of like a muscle. Is there a daily obstacle that allows you to flex your resiliency?
My life is an obstacle. I live with rheumatoid arthritis, and at times my mobility is limited. So as far as flexing my resiliency, I probably flex it more times than I can count. But the idea is to use it think of it almost like a stream, like it flows, right? So oftentimes when we think of resiliency, we think of it like something that we have to dust off. And with me, I've incorporated resiliency into my life so much that I wake up in gratitude. And even when I get stuck in traffic, I reframe my thought to say, I'm thankful that I'm in traffic. I can focus on listening to music or having a moment to myself. Like there's times when you're like washing the dishes. I'm grateful that I have running water. There's times that may seem mundane, but we can express resiliency through gratitude and through mindfulness. And I think the approach is to be able to integrate it within our lives so that it becomes a muscle similar to breathing. You don't think when you breathe. And that's what I've done with my life. I've used it so much that I've gotten to a place where I don't think, I do.
So it almost seems to me, what you're saying are those things like just being, gracious, having that gratitude, being thankful, mentoring others. Like once you start doing that a lot, it just becomes natural to you. Just like that's your first orientation.
Yeah, I began this presentation by saying that resiliency wasn't passive, and it really is an active motion. Recently I was with a coworker who said that both her aunt and uncle had passed from COVID, and she was like, "Well, Farooq, what do you say about resiliency in that? Like, how can I be resilient in that when all I want to do is feel sad and cry?" And the important thing to remember is to allow ourselves patience. Like we're human. Of course we're going to grieve. Of course we're going to go through those emotions of feeling sad, of mourning. The idea isn't to avoid those emotions. The idea is to be able to interpret your thoughts and reframe them to say, my uncle and aunt loved me. They cared about me. And how do I honor their memory? And how do I incorporate and integrate them into my being so I become stronger? Resiliency is about strengthening yourself, but it's also about strengthening your life as a whole.
Great response. Thank you. I have a question here from Carter Walton. What techniques or practices do you use to remain optimistic at times when you feel overloaded physically or mentally? So what techniques or practices do you use to remain optimistic at times when you feel overloaded physically or mentally?
In the mornings, I meditate. I find that when I do meditate, my days go better. So that's what I've practiced for the last 5 years now. I do meditate in the mornings, and I keep a gratitude journal at night where I just jot down a few things that I'm grateful for that went well in the day. Like, it doesn't even have to be anything big. Like, it could, for me, sometimes it's just the small wins, like being able to get through the mall without having to take a break, being able to walk up through the mall without having to take a break. It's sometimes the small things that are your biggest victories. So yeah, I keep a gratitude journal, and I'm really aware and conscious of my thoughts throughout the day. Uh, Perhaps because I've practiced mindfulness for such a long time, that it comes naturally to me. So I'm really aware throughout the day, and I've always been a very introspective person. So I'm always looking for areas that give me resistance, or when I have an interaction with a colleague or a coworker that I feel rubs me the wrong way, or it gets me to a point that it bothers me. I always check in with myself, and I always say, well, why did that bother me as much as it did? And I think understanding yourself and extending yourself love and knowing who you are and being aware of who you are is part of resiliency as well.
Yeah. So some folks might not know that, because you're journaling a lot, but you're one of like 3 authors that we have during this brand new event. And I know you've written a children's book, Frankie Saves the Day, which I just loved reading, by the way. And you've written a few other books. So are these, the journal that you're keeping, is that sort of like material for those items? Are these separate projects? Sort of, how are you using your journal in your everyday? And maybe talk a little bit about your side hustle, if you will.
Oh yeah, I don't really thought of it as a side hustle. My book, A Moment of Belief, talks about my journey from my neck injury. I have a severe neck injury where I shattered C2 to C7. You have 7 vertebrae in your spine, and I went through a posterior cervicalectomy with fusion and instrumentation from C2 to C7. One of, I think, 1 or 2% of Americans that have gone through that procedure, and and they told me I would never walk again. So I proved them wrong, and I wrote a book about it. So yeah, so yeah, that's called Moment of Belief, and so yeah, and it took me 4 years to write, and I tried to use my journals to write that book. But I found that it was almost like a how-to manual on how to deal with, like, you know, being, and it just didn't flow correctly. So I started it over again. And so, yeah, that took 4 years to write. And then I, in a week, decided I wanted to write a children's book about being different and about what Frankie thinks is a disability. He's got long purple arms, right? And so he thinks that he looks awkward and weird, and it's a body image book, and it's close to my heart because I wrote it in a week, and then I published it. I didn't really even think anything about it. I just wrote it, but I got so much feedback from, like, elementary schools where they were like, "Wait, this is a really good book for our children in our classrooms because it really helps uh, people to understand that what we believe might be a defect or a flaw could actually be a blessing."
Yeah, that's great. So again, it's Frankie Saves the World, right? Or the day.
Save the day. He's
Oh, just
not
the
at the
day.
world yet. He's not at the world yet.
Yeah, but it's a really, it's a great children's book. Great for the holidays, by the way. You can order it on Amazon. I ordered it just because, I was like, oh, we have this, speaker, and I want to know sort of what they have, and I just, have enjoyed it, and I'm going to gift it now to my niece, and so yeah, I really highly recommend it. And I know that you're sort of in our prep for this call, you had said that you've written some other ones, but you haven't published them yet. But hopefully you will. Can you give us a couple of titles from those books?
Yeah, Everyday Resilience, where I speak about how to use resiliency within the course of a daily basis, and the methods that I've gone through to help incorporate that into my life. And then Frankie Saves the Zoo and Frankie Saves Christmas. So yeah, so we'll
He's
see.
up to a lot of things, right?
Yeah, he's saving a lot of stuff. But yeah, no, I've been with Comcast now for close to 11 years, which is a long time. I started off as a project manager, and then I became a lead for project management. And then in June of last year, I got let go from Comcast. They did a mass layoff. They laid off close to they laid off a lot of people. And then I got a call one day in November to rejoin Comcast. So I rejoined. And so I am now considered a brand manager and a Wi-Fi project manager. So that's my full-time job. And then my passion projects are obviously talking about resiliency. I talk oftentimes about resiliency at domestic violence shelters. I've talked about it in nursing homes, in senior living communities. I've talked about it with the Cook County police. I've talked to it with multiple people from different walks of life who feel that they need resiliency. I was surprised when like the police force reached out to me, but it's a very stressful job, and I can understand how incorporating resiliency to that mindset and using it as a tool can help that profession. So yeah.
Wow, you're staying very busy. You're all over the place, and
Yeah.
helping organizations with a really important thing. So, glad to hear that. Drew Arnon Hillis asked, and Drew's just been crushing it in all of our sessions with good questions. So I hope he'll be joining us for the YouTube session at 2 p.m. He asked, resiliency sounds like it corresponds with positive attitude. Like, I guess what's the difference there? How do you practice being more self-aware and acknowledging when you are being negative?
Yeah, I think that mindset definitely plays a large part in resiliency. Typically, the definition of resiliency is bouncing back, but I've changed it to mean moving through and using it. But yeah, Drew's absolutely right. Like a large part of resiliency is mindset. When medical professionals told me you won't walk ever again, I had to believe that I was greater than that. I had to believe in the impossible. And so the idea is uh, to have a mindset to know that you're greater than any circumstance of any day. Whatever life throws at you, know that your mindset, if you approach it with a positive one, you're already ahead. And so mindset has a lot to do with it. I think knowing uh, your emotional state, self-awareness has a lot to do with it, self-love has a lot to do with it. Resiliency to me is, how do I integrate my thoughts, emotions, and feelings on a daily basis to make me a better person and to strengthen my being. And that's what I think of when I use the word resiliency.
Yeah, I really like that phrase, moving through. Right. Very nice. That's the word you use, right? Moving through.
Moving through, yes, sir.
Yeah, moving through. Okay. Very nice. Thank you for that. I have a question here from Jacob Williams, and it's, I think, a tough one because it's a little qualitative in experience, but it does make me think of a follow-up question that I'll probably hit after this. But he asks, what would you say is a healthy amount of grieving time or sadness before you should get back and start the resiliency process? So they might not understand also that resilience is probably that moving through that. But yeah, so what might you say to that? If you're grieving, and people think you got to bounce back, what's the time frame for that?
Yeah, I don't know if there is really a time frame. I've never put a time frame on that. When people have asked me the question about death, I've never really said like this is what you have to do. Like I spoke about my coworker and her aunt and uncle passing. I didn't tell her that by next Thursday, it's time to bounce back. Like. Uh, See, that's the thing with resiliency. It's like people don't drown in water. They drown when they stay there. And resiliency is the idea that it it's okay to have a pity party. It's okay to fail. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to feel sorry for yourself. It's okay to have negative thoughts and doubt. But the idea is not to stay there. Once you become stagnant, then you have to be able to say, I'm strong enough to pick myself back up again. And that is in what I think of when I think of the concept of resiliency. I mean, mourning in particular, sometimes it can take years. I don't put I know a lady that asked me a question through email that she had lost her son. And she was like, Farooq, I read your book and I just want to know, how do I move past that? Well, you can't, right? I mean, it's not possible to move past that event that happened, but how do you incorporate that into your life? How do you interpret that event? How do you use that? And how do you use those emotions and feelings to strengthen your resolve, to strengthen who you are as a person, to get you to being your ultimate best, to bring your potential, And so I was giving a talk at a cancer foundation about 2 years ago, and a lady came to me and she told me, Farooq, I'm a victim of cancer, breast cancer, but I've been in remission for the last 10 years, and I said, What do you mean a victim of breast cancer? You're a survivor, And she's like, no, I had cancer, but I don't have it anymore. I said, right. So you're a survivor. So oftentimes, like the talk that we have with ourselves in reframing our experience is just as important. And she's like, I never thought of it like that. I always thought that I was a victim of cancer. And so you have to learn also to celebrate once you do bounce back, or once you do achieve whatever hurdle you're going through. You have to learn to celebrate your wins as just as well.
Great, thank you for that response. Your response to this actually makes me think of a student that I once had who was also a cancer survivor, and she started an organization called Ignite Hope. And what they do is get folks together to make candles, and inside them they put little messages for other people who might have cancer. And it's a fundraiser, so they give that to charity. But then as the candle melts, there would be like a message in there. And I think putting in these positive messages is kind of a way to kind of like pay it forward for those who have survived, because there is some kind of guilt that comes with that. So there's like very interesting things about how, what kind of process do you use to move yourself forward. So thank you for that response, and just a shout out to that student's organization. I think like a follow-up question to this then is, what advice do you give to people who are on the other side of the equation and might say something like, oh, I'll be there for you, and then maybe it's a year later when you really need the help, because it might, grief might come in different waves. You might be fine for a couple months and then it really hits you, and then they're like, oh, you're still on that. I was there for you a couple months ago. So what advice do you give to people that are giving the I'll be there for you kind of advice to be a better partner?
People always show you who they are. And I think that Oprah Winfrey said it best. You want to surround yourself with people that will take the limo with you, but when the limo breaks down, will be willing to take the bus. And I think we as people oftentimes choose friends based on a variety of things that are relatable to us, but deep down when someone says that they'll be there for you, we know whether it's coming from an authentic place or not. And so I think we just have to use our internal compass as to who we can rely on and who we can't. I don't pass judgment on anyone's character, because I think mourning and grieving in particular are hard things to do. And sometimes the people that say that they will be there for us but aren't, maybe they're just not emotionally capable of that. And so, yeah, I know another lady that was going through cancer, and she had a bunch of people that said, "I'll be there for you during the cancer treatment," and then there was only two people that actually really showed up. And that isn't any fault of those other people. It's just that sometimes the capacity that we have within ourselves, we think it's a lot more than it really is. And so, yeah, we always know when people show up authentically. And I think another part of resiliency really is empathy, really being empathetic to whether it be people or situations. Altruism, giving back, helping others, ends up being something that helps us in the end. And so that strengthens us. So I think that that's an important part of resiliency as well, especially whether it be personally or in organizations. I know that there's been a lot of like food drives that Comcast does throughout the year that I involve myself in. It's because giving back feels good, and it makes you think less about your problems, uh, and that might be a little selfish, but it gets you away from thinking about your problem and starts getting you to start thinking about a solution.
Yeah, there's a lot of research actually on that. When you're more charitable and giving, you actually tend to be more successful, happier, and so forth. So, give to get, I guess, is the outcome of
Give to
that.
get,
And
yeah.
yeah, sometimes it's used in social media as like, do things so eventually you can ask. But I think in a more humanistic sense, if you give to people, you will get kindness in return. Briley Buchanan, also asking great questions today, asked, have you ever dealt with false hopes? You get all excited about something, or someone's promised you something, and then you get let down by that. And how do you overcome that? And maybe some of the things you already said, but I think reinforcing those ideas would be valuable.
Yeah, I mean, hope is one thing that resiliency plays a large part in. I mean, I'm hopeful for the present, just like I'm hopeful for the future. Have I been let down? Yes. Like this experience of being human, there's certain qualities and certain things that we all can relate to, and whether that being let down before, or being in a situation where it seems hopeless. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I when I hurt my neck, when I had my neck injury, there were many periods when self-doubt would creep in, or this idea of hopelessness, like uh, what am I going to do? And it was a terrifying time. But I didn't play into that. There is something that comes with resiliency and mindfulness that allows you to turn down the volume on those noises, to allows you to turn down the sound on those doubts and not make them the loudest ones in the room. And so that's within, as far as hopelessness, when other people have let me down. Yeah, probably within an organization. Oftentimes, I think you can experience it where, like, you'll go for a promotion or you'll go for another job opportunity within the organization, and you won't get it, and you'll think like, "What's going on here? Like, why didn't they choose me?" And you might take it personally. The idea isn't why didn't they choose you. The idea is, how do you get better, and so that you might be available for the next opportunity that comes around. And resiliency transcends that as well. It says, instead of me always saying to myself, why me? Why did this happen to me? Why do I have arthritis? I start saying to myself, how do I become, how do I live my life with purpose, with gratitude, with resiliency? So once you transition from this idea of why to how, your life changes. And I think it gives you hope. And so yeah, I've been in many situations within an organization where I thought, oh, I got that job. I did great on that interview, you know and then they choose like Bob from accounting, and you're like, what does Bob from accounting have that I don't have? Like and then you realize, like, wait, maybe that wasn't meant for you. And so then you give gratitude to that, and then your journey continues. What's meant for you will be for you.
Great, thank you. This will be the last question. And you work on teams and you lead teams inside of a corporate American environment with Comcast and other places where you've worked. What advice would you give to students here today about how they can be a good participant on the team? Like, what would you want from them if they were on your team?
Oftentimes what I encourage is just being open-minded. Be authentically yourself. Like, you don't have to be like a people pleaser, and you don't have to be someone that does things for recognition or whatever. Just be yourself, and put your best foot forward. I think every day is an a interview, and I think that by approaching others with an open mind, with an empathetic attitude, and with a positive mindset, I give people the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes I give people the benefit of the doubt too much, like if an individual is late for a project deadline that I have, I still give them the benefit of the doubt, even though I kind of try to rein them in. I'll schedule follow-up meetings, and I think in general, communication goes a long way. People can't understand what's going on in your head if you don't communicate it. So your level of communication not only determines your success within an organization, it actually determines the success of your life. So I think that for me, I'm a lifelong learner, right? So I'll always be a student. And so I've really worked on being a better communicator. At times when I started on my journey with leading teams and with helping with leadership, I was very direct. I would say, Pam, this isn't in, and it should have been in, and what's going on, And I think, at a point, even aggressive, because that's just who I am as a person at times. And I realized, like, that doesn't work. And you have to almost treat people like you would treat yourself. Like, I wouldn't I wouldn't beat myself up, And so that's kind of the approach that I took. I said, okay, how would I solve this problem if I was having it myself? And then I started giving advice from that. Like, now when someone misses a deadline or something goes wrong, I approach it like, okay, what would I do if I was in that person's shoes, or how would I approach it differently? So being open-minded, working on your communication, being a lifelong learner, being positive, being empathetic. those are all strategies that I employ on a daily basis and that I use with people and teams to not only strengthen myself, but to become a better leader and a better person.
Great, thank you. At this time, Maribel, do you want to share a few final words? You're muted. And so while she's unmuting, I did drop the link for some credit in the chat. I did it this time. I could see the link. Anyway, hold on. You might be force muted by me. There you go. Thanks.
Okay, I think I'm good. On behalf of the attendees and the sponsors of this session, Southern Illinois University, Carbondale's Department of Communication Studies, SIU College of Liberal Arts, and Communication at Work, LLC, I would like to thank you for taking the time to prepare these remarks for this event, that you shared with us your wisdom and your personal experience with us, especially with all of our students. I know that I appreciated your comments about reframing our situations with positivity, not only positivity, but gratitude. It kind of brought me back to, like you said, having a gratitude journal and documenting all the good things, big and small. You mentioned ways to build resilience, celebrating our successes, again, big or small. Every little victory is a victory. And 3, we can't get rid of stress. So how do we use it to propel us? And I know that I will use this information, especially as a junior in the Communication Studies Department. I am a non-traditional student, but I also also wear other hats. I'm a small business owner. I'm a mentor, sister, daughter, friend. So you putting all of this into a framework is excellent. And I know other students will benefit from the session as well. Please accept our virtual handshake and forthcoming thank you card along with a gift as a token of our gratitude.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure and my honor to be here today. And I look forward to one day maybe being there in person. Thank you guys all so very much. You can reach me. I do have a website, farookashaw.com, or you can reach me on Instagram if you ever want to drop me a line or ask me a question or just to talk. Yeah, I'm accessible and I'm always available.
Great, thank you, Farooq. And with that said, you can find his contact information on his bio